This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, I'd like to call the um, April 23rd, 2020 meeting of the Economic Development Authority to order. It is, my clock says 12:14 p.m. I will take roll call. Mr. Dunn,
Here.
Mr. Southworth,
Here.
Mr. DeVos,
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
We have a quorum. Mr. Abels and Mr. Faber are evidently unable to join us, and my concern is they didn't get a packet either, but the rest of you obviously got yours. So the way we'll do this is I'll go through the items, and when it comes to the discussion on the items, I'll call you individually, and everybody will have an opportunity. The first order would be, would anyone, and again, you have to say DeVos moves or Johnson moves or DeVos seconds, so we have that recorded, but would anyone move approval of the agenda?
Dunn moves.
We have a motion by Dunn. Is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
We have a motion by Dunn, seconded by Johnson. I will call the roll call. Mr. Southworth,
Yes.
Mr. DeVos,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Dunn.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. How about, would anyone move the approval of the March 26, 2020 minutes?
Johnson makes a motion to approve.
We got a motion by Johnson. Is there a second?
DeVos
Dunn
seconds.
We got Brad DeVos seconding the motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll say, Mr. Dunn. All in favor?
Yes.
Mr.
Aye.
Southworth, Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. DeVos.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, we had received 3 applications for the Central Business District American with Disabilities Act Enhancement Grant Program. We call it a grant. It's actually structured as a forgivable loan. We received 3 applications. They're held up just a little bit as we were waiting for a second quote. They had to get 2 quotes, so we were waiting for one of those. So the applications were received to the end of business on the 28th of February. I've discussed it with all the applicants, and the 3 applicants were Kind Vet Clinic, Swedish Contour, Riley Tennis and Associates. All of them proposed the installation of an automatic door opening system. You can see in page 7 in the packet the cost for the automatic door for Kind Vet, $3,950. $550 in for the wiring for a total of $4,500. They are doing 2 doors, one an exterior door and then a door from their vestibule into the office. Swedish Contour then would look at doing 1 automatic door on their Minnesota Avenue facade. Their door cost would be $2,800 and then $375 to wire the 1 door for a total of $3,175. Riley Tannison is similar to Kind. They have a outdoor opener and then a second one on the door leading from the vestibule into the there we go. So they had $3,950, $600 for the wiring for a total of $4,550. I've determined that each are located within the Central Business District. Each would be considered to be an eligible business, and it would be my recommendation, gentlemen, that you further recommend that the City Council authorize the award of those 2 or 3 grants or forgivable loans. There is a draft of the agreement that the city attorney has prepared, beginning on page 11 and continuing to page 18. And then I had prepared a resolution that is on page 20 that would recommend that the city council provide the 3 awards as I've discussed. At this point, I'll ask individually if there's any questions or comments. I'll start with Mr. DeVos.
Actually, the first thing I'd like to ask is, Bob, could you mute your speaker when you're not talking? Because it looks like it's trying to engage when Russ is talking and me as well. So I think your speaker is there. Actually, I think it's better now. I really don't have any comments, except for the fact that this appears to be doing what was intended for the loan. The costs are coming in really low, so I think I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, Brad. Mr. Southworth, comments? None? Okay, Mr. Johnson?
I have none.
Thank you. Mr. Dunn?
The only question I had was part of our policy required that the Heritage Preservation Commission also approve this. I just want to make sure that was done.
Yeah, this isn't going to be an exterior renovation that would require their review. So yes, if it was changing out the entire doorway system or entryway, this is essentially the hardware.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I had no further statements other than to say I think it sounds like a good plan.
Gentlemen, would anyone move the resolution that's on page 20 in the packet?
Dunn
I'll
would
make the
move.
motion. Oh,
I got a motion by Dunn. Ed, was that a second?
yep.
And a second by Johnson. Is there further discussion regarding the resolution? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Mr. Southworth?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. DeVos?
Aye.
Mr. Dunn?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. On page 22, you
So
have
hold on a
roster-
sec.
Oh, sorry about that.
Brad, are you guys hitting your microphone on and off every time you talk?
Well, I try and leave it muted when I'm not talking, because sometimes what happens is feedback does come from the speaker into the microphone. And I noticed
Okay.
so what I noticed was when Russ was talking, when someone's talking, the microphone changes. And I noticed while Russ was talking, your microphone was active too. So
Huh.
that appeared, and there was a lot of feedback going on at that point. Once you muted your microphone, yeah, then the feedback stopped.
Okay.
Yep, you can also get headphones. They seem to work well. But yeah, you can see, Bob, if this is your first time, whoever's speaking, it kind of lights up around the outline of their photo, their Brady Bunch portrait, we call it. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. DeVos. On page 22 is a roster of the businesses that have participated in the COVID-19 microloan program. River Rock, we're just waiting to close that one. Tamika, the majority owner, is in Oregon, I believe. So we're trying to arrange for notary and get her signature back so that we can distribute the loan dollars. But I will be reporting tomorrow to our business meeting that at this point we'll have 39 loans for a total of 300, and I think we're at 51,000 at this point. So just over $350,000. If you'll recall, we estimated there may be 100 or just over 100 businesses that would be eligible to participate. So we didn't anticipate that everybody would choose to take out a loan, but we are going to keep that open, and I've got another 4 or so that are in the pipeline waiting for the proper documentation of bills and lease payments and such. Is there any questions regarding what's on page 22?
This is James Dunn. I did have one question. I'm not sure why, but I had assumed that everyone would take out the maximum of the $10,000 loan based upon the favorable terms that we had kind of developed. But I see that some of the businesses only took out partial loans. If those businesses wanted to, could they take out a second application so long as it was under the $10,000 limit that we established?
Yeah, the reason that some of them didn't take the full $10,000 is 10,000 was determined to be the maximum. And so how we verify what an individual business is going to be eligible to receive is we take their lease, mortgage, or rent payment, and they send me a copy of the lease or a copy of their mortgage. And then we add to that their utility payments. So water, sewer, gas, garbage. I've allowed security fees. Some have rug services or laundry services. We're looking at the recurring monthly expenses, and we add the two, or add the list of their bills together and multiply that by 4. And so if they received less than the $10,000, they had monthly expenses of lease and utilities of less than $2,500. So it's been very enlightening. I get to see what people are paying for their leases, and that's always good information to have, because I get that question a lot from people that are looking to buy a building. What can I charge? So that's good information. I'll just keep up here. If there are no questions regarding the roster or other questions, there has been a request to expand the list of eligible businesses. One has come from the River Valley Birth Center. They have experienced a downturn. You'd think babies are going to come when babies are going to come. But as people have lost insurance and gone on to the public pay, that reduces the amount of their reimbursement. They've also had to curtail some of their revenue generating pre-birth activities. And so they're not getting that. So they have asked, and I can certainly explain our exposure here. We have one birth center. And so they have asked that you then recommend to the city council an expansion of the eligible roster to add birth center. Also, I did have a inquiry. I guess it wasn't a formal request, an inquiry from one of the dentists in town. And I explained that unfortunately they weren't deemed to be eligible at this point, but I would entertain that discussion with the EDA. Also, in thought would be perhaps the dentist, the chiropractors, podiatrist, or the optometrist, or similar medical affiliated professional services may benefit from this. They originally weren't included in the eligibility, and there was kind of some thought that, I've not walked down the street and said, I'm going to run in and get my back adjusted. That's typically something that I schedule. It's not an impulse purchase. But we do have some ability within the funding that we set aside to add those. And I'd ask if you have comments, questions regarding that, and I'll start with Councilman Johnson.
In my opinion, like your dentists and stuff like that, if they're a business in St. Peter, I think I'd be okay with letting them be eligible because it's part of St. Peter. And the birthing center, they're in St. Peter too.
Thank you, Ed. Anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Dunn?
I would agree that the purpose of the EDA is to not only bring in new business, but to help support our existing businesses. And with the birthing center, I know that that's been touted as being one of the amenities that St. Peter offers that a lot of other communities don't. And so I would be in support of expanding our list beyond that group of essential businesses, if it means that keeping businesses open and afloat in St. Peter during this time.
Okay. Mr. Southworth?
I would also be in support of it. I know there's dentists, there's chiropractors that are basically closed. And like James said, we're here to support our current businesses too.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Councilman DeVos?
I agree too. Main purpose, first we looked at for restaurants and businesses that we were told that were told to close down. The other thing with dentists and chiropractors is the public has been discouraged. Even dentists have been encouraged to cancel appointments that aren't necessary. If you chip a tooth or something, yeah, you need to see the dentist. But routine cleanings and stuff have been discouraged. So yeah, there's been a huge impact on that. So yeah, I would be in favor of it as well. Obviously, all these businesses have been impacted, so I would be in favor as well.
Would any of you be willing to make a motion then? We don't have a resolution. We can do a motion to recommend that the city council add birth centers, and then we'll call it allied medical professionals. And I'll get the actual term when the council has it in their resolution. But would anyone want to make that motion?
DeVos moves.
Okay. Is there a second?
Johnson will second it.
We got a motion by DeVos, a second by Johnson. Is there further discussion regarding the motion?
Quick clarification. Are we gonna, just because I've been dealing with this SBA PPP loan, but will there be a guideline, like would any business be able to apply then, like a convenience store, or is it gonna be somebody that's like shut down?
Well,
Where do we limit?
yeah, you know, the dentists and the chiropractors and the optometrists are to curtail anything that's not medically necessary or life-saving or something that would result in a maiming injury or something. So Brad was right. The cleanings and such and routine dental care has been stopped. But I would suggest that um, you could limit it to dentists and chiropractics and optometrists, or you could list specific medical specialties, or I would think if you said allied medical professionals, I would have somewhat of an understanding of how that would be interpreted. But yeah, I do agree that they've all been impacted. Any other questions, Bob?
No, I just wanted to feel that out, because with that PPP program, you know, sometimes there's people that aren't being impacted that are applying for it, and you just don't know where to draw the line, you know.
Well, yeah, even with our current eligibles, there are some that said they are going to take it as a cushion. And if they need it, they'll access it. If not, they'll repay it next May before they'd have a regular monthly installment, and it's at 0% interest. And I told them if it gives them comfort, there's some value to that also. So yeah, but every one of them, nearly every one of them, seemed to be very appreciative at the assistance and because of their difficulty getting the SBA funds. Yeah, any other further discussion, questions? Hearing none, I will call the roll then, and I will start with Mr. Southworth.
Aye.
Mr. Dunn,
Aye.
Mr. DeVos,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. I will make that recommendation to the city council. I will see if I have the opportunity to get that on for the 27th here. It's past the deadline we have, so if Mr. Prafke will accommodate that, I'll try to get that on for Monday night. Otherwise, the city council will take that matter up on the 11th of May. So there will be a little bit of a delay if we can't get that on for Monday. I will let you know, and some of you have been participating on our Friday video conferences sponsored by the city and the Chamber of Commerce. We'll be doing our 6th video conference tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We topped out at one of the meetings at 55 attendees, and now it has dwindled as we expected, perhaps after we've got our money distributed. You know, some of the urgency's off a little bit, but they seem to be going well. We are going to have another conversation this week, because last week we had about 22, I think. And when you looked at it, 8 or 9 of those were presenters or staff or council persons. So I have an opportunity to communicate with the council on a weekly basis, essentially. So we may go to just posting a video on the YouTube channel and directing people they can watch it at their leisure. And they can always call in if they've got questions. We've been very blessed to have our partners from the Regional Economic Development Alliance, the staff of Greater Mankato Growth, specifically John Considine III and Patrick Baker. Their wealth of knowledge, and we've each tried to kind of take part of it and get a better understanding so that we can give some good advice to the businesses. And then David Hahn, the regional director of the Small Business Development Center, joined us last Friday, and I believe he's going to intend to join us again. Brad, Ed, I know you've taken part in those. Do you have any comments?
I think they've been helpful. I've taken some of the information to my clients, some of the stuff that John brought up with the $5,000 U.S. Chamber of Commerce grant. I farmed out to a couple of my clients. So I found just bringing up what's available has been really helpful. So not just as a city council member, but just from a professional perspective as well. I do think maybe going to the YouTube thing, because I noticed that last time too, is it almost seemed like half the people there were either city council people or presenters. So
Ed, anything to add?
The only thing I got to add is about the 5,000 that the chamber did. By the time I got into the site, the funds were already gone.
That seems to be common with a bunch of different programs. So they just did a reappropriation of the federal money. They're calling it phase 3.5, and Patrick Baker will be able to talk a little bit about that tomorrow. One of the questions we had is how much of that was already spent before they passed the legislation. You know, people that were in the pipeline and didn't get funded in the first round. So I hope it is a help. I really hope that the city funds have been help, and I believe they have been. You know, the big difference is in 2009, I could say that road construction is going to be about 140 days. And I can't say that about this situation. I have no idea. It's not within my pay grade, and I don't have the background information. So, but we will try to do our best to usher through the business community. You know, we've told them if we all walk together and hold hands, if someone stumbles, there's others to help pick you up. So I am confident that our community will come through this better than most, because we do have that cohesiveness, and perhaps there's even a little bit of experience recovering from a natural disaster. I will mention on reports item C, we did have 5 loan deferral requests, and so now those have been processed and their payments have been curtailed until it would be the August 1st payment. So they'd have no payment in April, May, June, and July. And again, the businesses that requested it were very grateful for the assistance. Gentlemen, that's what I had prepared for an agenda. Are there questions that perhaps I could answer? Anything pertinent that I could answer? I am seeing heads shaking no. Would any member be willing to make a motion to adjourn then?
I'll make that motion. And I'll also try to get somebody, I get your emails.
Yeah, I like I said, yours all of a sudden started bouncing back after years of emailing you. So
I know.
I thought maybe I sent you something funny. You blocked me, but
I thought maybe there was nothing on the agenda, so we didn't have one.
I apologize for that, Bob.
I updated my computers at the club.
Yeah.
Some of my emails got sent to junk that I usually got all the time.
I'm finding that with the school district too. If I send an email, they're not getting it. So I don't know what's going on.
Some of the emails that had been sent to me, applications, I had one applicant said, well, where's my application? I said, I haven't gotten anything. And I emailed it to you 2 weeks ago. So we have one of the highest levels of security, and we can't apologize for that because we have daily attacks on our system with either ransomware or malware or spyware. And so we have to, you know, it's like bank security, I suppose. We're up at that level.
Yep.
Protected. So we have a motion by Southworth to adjourn. Is there a second?
Johnson will second it.
We have a second from Johnson. I'm not going to ask for any further discussion on the motion. Well, I'll go. I suppose we got to do the roll. Councilman Johnson.
Aye.
Mr. Southworth.
Aye.
Councilman DeVos.
Aye.
Mr. Dunn.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. I'll follow up with Corey and Mike. They might have the same issue that Bob did. But thank you, gentlemen. We'll intend to meet in this format next month if necessary, or until the governor lifts the emergency order. So be very well, be very safe, and have a good afternoon.
See you, everybody.
See you later.
Thanks, guys.